Michael, go.
And we are live. There you go.
Hello. I always forget to look at the camera, so I'm looking in the lens,
staring at your enemies.
So we were talking about
less staring, more glaring. That one.
Yeah. Well, indeed.
We were talking about whether it's okay to swear on camera, and like I don't want it to be a case that, you know, just because you're hanging out with us and we kind of know each other, that you fall into this kind of like comfort level, because I'm worried I'll do the same thing in response. Like if you start swearing, it's going to be like yawning. It'll become contagious.
That's true.
And I'll start doing it in response. I try really hard. I think Ken can kind of vouch for me, who's often watching on the stream. He will comment when I do a darn, because I'll be like about to say something and I'll just like twist it at the last second.
Like a 1840s miner in the state. Gosh darn it,
Jiminy Willikins!
Yeah,
is my non-swear of choice.
And I was are you aware, Ben? And by the way, this is Ben.
Hi.
Games for Doomsday. We'll do a proper introduction in a little bit. But are you aware of the podcasting phenomenon that is the McElroy brothers?
I'm not, actually.
Okay.
It can't be that much of a phenomenon. I haven't heard of it.
I mean, they've got about 700 different shows.
Okay.
One of which is the Adventure Zone, which is like them playing D&D as a family, so that sort of thing, and it's pretty successful. But they have another one. Their main show is called My Brother and Me, which is essentially billed as an advice show for the modern era. Right, okay, so they had a bit in an episode ages and ages ago, which like they will find questions on Yahoo Answers and then just give their views on it as well. And the question was, what are your favorite wizard swears? And it got brutal. And I would love to say all of these things, but they're like zippity zoppity doo was one of them, which I was quite a fan of. And by Merlin's beard, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some lovely swears on there. If you're looking for some good creative cursing,
I think I would go for
highly advised.
Alaka effing Zam.
Right.
Just to drive
Abraca effing Dabra. I got very partridge then tonight. That's a partridge, isn't it? Abraca effing Dabra.
Accidental Partridge, which is always a good thing.
Which is a wonderful Twitter account. That is a Twitter account that I'm familiar with, Accidental Partridge.
The beautiful Boydell is in the chat, but I'm not putting that second one up.
I can't see the chat, so all I can see is the hello, my darlings.
Good. That's okay.
I
chat.
eroded Tony's masculinity today by making him cry.
Nice.
Have you been bullying Boydell again?
He watched my YouTube video, and it because I just released a YouTube shameless plug here. I just released a YouTube video which is a sort of elegy to game groups because we can't play in game groups at the moment, and talking about why game groups are amazing. And Tony watched it and said it made him cry.
Was that like the poor production value, or?
Yeah, it's the poor production value. The fact I've got a cold sore, which I mean, I look infectious on the camera.
The 48 seconds of photo epileptic seizure-inducing strobing. Yep, that's always good.
Yeah. I always open every video with intense strobe.
So
it's like an episode of Pokemon.
I just want to finish off something with Tony. I've noticed that we can. There's a thing on StreamYard where we can put user in timeout. So Tony, if you misbehave this evening, I'm putting you in timeout. Okay, just letting you know.
See, when I stream, I just have my army of mods. Well, I have two of them, and it's just like, you know, they will protect me like, you know, like a shield around the general or whatever. And it's and actually there's one there. There's Ken. Hello, Ken.
Yeah. Hello, Ken. Hiding, watching, waiting.
Yeah, so he's lurking on YouTube, so it's going to be harder. They'll have to jump over to catch him. No, yeah, you're not safe from me, Tony. Just
where are you getting these? Oh, I can hit the comments tab. Can I?
Yeah, if you look at comments. So we also have
by the pierced. Oh, right.
Yeah. See, so yeah, we also have like a private chat, so I can send abusive message to you, you know, in secret. which is also
I
lovely.
love. Isn't the internet wonderful? I mean, people complain about the internet, but it's a wonderful thing. It keeps us communicating.
Yeah,
for good or for bad.
Usually, well, it depends on the platform. It depends on the platform, doesn't it?
Here, generally for good, because we're good people. Generally.
It's a hub of good feelings, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Can we kick him?
No.
Already?
Who? Oh,
guest.
For
Hanforth Parish. Read the standing orders.
You have no authority here, Ben Maddox. You have no authority.
Did you see the lawyer with the cat face?
Yeah, and apparently he's a bit of a milkshake duck as well, which is...
What's a milkshake duck?
I regret to inform you that there's a Twitter post from years ago. It's part 1. Everybody loves milkshake duck, the fun, happy milkshake drinking duck. And then it's part 2. We regret to inform you that milkshake duck is racist. And it's so yeah, literally within hours of the whole I'm not a cat, I'm a real boy thing coming out, which was a great story. Yeah, apparently he's an absolute beast.
Is it okay if we proceed here? I'm not a cat. It's the sad kitten face. It's the sad kitten face. It's absolutely astonishing. It's amazing.
Read
I'm
them.
gonna have to go and search this.
Dude, there's some absolute gold. And yeah, you must have been aware of the Hanforth Parish Council thing. It kicked off a couple of days ago.
No,
you've not seen this. So I watched a longer cut of it, and the longer cut is quite boring. But watch the sort of 3.5 minute cut of the Hanforth Parish Council. It is read the standing orders and understand them. It's amazing.
It is the most glorious, English. It's the most English thing you will see in the very, very long time
you'll ever see.
Is that the kind of the held in rage at the world, but trying to maintain some kind of veneer of
it is the
normality?
Officiousness. It is the rod up the backside of officiousness.
Uh-huh.
And they're trying to leverage these non-existent bylaws that they just invented off the top of their head to allow them to just be. I can't think of a term of abuse that's not a swear word. Bellend. Can we say? Is Bellend all right?
I'll allow it.
Because Americans won't understand that. Because frankly, Americans are the only ones who get offended by the swearing anyway. So if we use particularly British ones, then they won't get it, so they won't be offended, right?
Yeah, that'll work.
There's a podcast.
Put definitions up on the Profanosaurus definitions.
So this is probably,
Rory, I apologize.
Yeah, this is probably hugely inaccurate, or close enough to be right but wrong all at the same time. There's a Twitter account and a podcast called Mother Folklore, right? Because in Irish, folklore is language. And so it's we'd see, Michael, we'd all titter in class when we used to speak Irish, and we'd get to say fuckle all the time, which is word. Cadé and fuckle chin.
It's like when you learn German, right? And you realize that drive is fart.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And you're doing...
Notepad is... my teacher told me Notepad is Notizbook. And it's just just imagine a girl who's got no boobs.
That has never occurred to me until you said it.
Yeah, but she was a very, should we say, buxom, middle-aged lady. Just imagine a girl who's got no boobs. And it's just we're in school, madam.
So on a recent podcast, they were talking about the origins of kind of swearing, and swearing in Irish. And apparently in the Irish language, we don't actually have, we don't have a lot of swear words.
Right.
Because it comes from usually oppression or different class states. And sorry, that's not the right. It's from officious terms that are being twisted and used in an incorrect way. But because we didn't have that kind of structure of command and control in Ireland, those words never actually developed. But it's why you see so many of them in the English language as well. And I can't say any of the words on stream, but there are words that would have had been someone in the civil service would have documented this term to describe a group of people or someone having a certain medical condition, and then how it got twisted into like a swear or like a derogatory term.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you see, and this, I guess, ties into kind of what we're going to talk about. But you see the trends of what swear words are change over time. So if you go back to Shakespeare's time, the F word was fine, the S word was fine, but by Jove was fine because that was a dead god. But if you said Jesus Christ, that was the worst thing you could say, right? Or it was all the religious words that were really, really frowned upon. And then you go through the Victorian age, and the Victorians wanted to disassociate their public persona from
frowned upon.
They wanted to disassociate their public persona from their crotches, and so it's all the bodily function words. And now we're having a sort of culture war. So the words that are really taboo, the like swear words were, if you imagine the F word 100 years ago, are the derogatory racial terms and things like this. These are the words that are utterly unacceptable to say in public. Whereas the F word, people might get angry with you or go, "Oh, I don't like that," but it's not unacceptable. Whereas there are words that we can all think of that are completely not only, they're not even sort of cool to say in a rebellious way, right? And they are the current swear words. And the hope is that society evolves and those words lose their power because they're no longer an active force within society, And so this is how swearing, Scandaroon, for instance,
the worst word.
Well, I was going to say, like, ginger. As soon as they put that to sleep and bury it, we
used to say Jange at school because we were classy. We had like we had one ginger kid in our year at school. One ginger kid. Can you imagine being the only ginger kid? And he was the sweetest, nicest lad you'd ever meet. Absolutely wonderful guy. My God, he got no end of grief for me and Ginger. It's just, kids are horrible. I mean, I don't know, Rory. Maybe you've brought up wonderful children, but my God, I mean, me and my friends were brutal as children.
Yeah, you
didn't sense any weakness.
You didn't have myself and any of that as parents. Our children are secure in themselves.
I can attest to this.
Because I wasn't. And like,
good kids.
I was a bit like that, and I was on the receiving end of it.
Yeah,
as well.
So apparently, he was a serial killer now. So thanks for that, Tony. Thanks for the input. All right. So we normally do a little bit about...
So what's your view on this? I'm seeing a lot of pushback because I've always been fascinated with true crime. I've always been fascinated with serial killers. I could, if we were of a mind, I could give you a top 5 serial killers and why I'm into them, sort of thing. And there seems to be a lot of... And I can see Michael's slightly pulling a face as if he's sucking
No, not at all.
And there seems to be at the moment a lot of sort of blowback on the idea of true crime and stuff, and that you shouldn't be doing it because it's unethical to use this stuff for entertainment, which is essentially what it is, right? What is your view on this?
I actually, you and my brother would get on very, very well because he had a pretty significant phase of fascination with the psychology behind serial killers and stuff like that. So he would. Yeah, he would talk more in a more learned fashion on this than I would. But I have my own sort of weird fascination, for example, with cults. I think that they're very, very interesting, very intriguing, and it's the sort of, it's almost like the power of celebrity sort of thing, but ramped up to an almost infinite degree, like, it's a god like Bevel sort of thing. But I think it's entirely healthy to have an interest, and sometimes it's if you have an interest in the darker side of humanity, then so be it. That's okay, as long as you're not going out killing and murdering people or causing anybody else any other harm.
If you're not,
you'll do your thing.
I think if you're not a bellend. That's I'm glad that's allowed because it's a very useful word. If you're not a bellend like Alex Jones who goes up to people who are victims of school shootings and tells them they're making it up, I think it's okay, right? I think because the fringes of society. I'm very interested in the fringes of society, whatever they may be. So I got completely obsessed recently with QAnon. And this is a recommendation for anyone listening to this. There's a podcast called the QAnon Anonymous podcast, right? And honest
to God, I thought you were going to mention my brother's one there for a minute, and that would have been very weird.
And it's 3 journalists, and they in real time talk about QAnon. And they're not QAnoners themselves, though I do listen to a pro QAnon podcast, which is a joy. And what I find so interesting about QAnon is if you look at all of the classic conspiracy theories, what they are conspiracy theories dealing with events in the past. So, JFK assassination, landing on the moon, all of this sort of stuff. What's so amazing about QAnon and why it's so fascinating is you see it developing in real time. And not only that, most other conspiracy theories are nice weirdos or horrible weirdos, mostly horrible because it's mostly anti-Semitism, basically. And weirdos, but they don't really have an effect. Yet QAnon invaded the Capitol in America 3 weeks ago. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. You see these people getting completely, jazzed up by the internet and these enclosed groups of people just egging each other on, and then it has real world effects. It's absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Shameless plug. Do try my brother's show. It's called Turning the Frogs Gay, and I'm pretty sure that you will enjoy it, Ben.
I'm pretty sure I will.
But now, as mentioned by Tony, this is a gaming show.
So it wasn't about them. No, I had something to say about serial killers earlier on.
Oh, go for it.
No, it doesn't matter now. No,
the moment's gone.
I think it's people have definitely fascinations about the inner workings of people and why people do the things they do. And there's also that element of, I remember talking to a prison officer who worked here in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, and he would make a point of going there, but for the grace of God, go I.
Right.
That is often a very fine line. And I think it's that aspect of it is what is the thing that compels someone to do that? And then also quite often the degree of intellect that's required to sustain it.
Right.
And I used to buy a Potwork magazine back in the days when you used to get those Potwork magazines and you put them into the folder, and it was all about serial killers. And I'd bet 40 issues looking at different serial killers. It's long since gone, but that was a fascination when I was in my late teens, early 20s, just understanding how that works.
The days before the internet, when publishers like Hachette could get away with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us move on. We have done a beautiful intro. Let us talk about this bearded beauty who is with us. This vision of loveliness, who comes with his own music, of course.
Is it the sound it makes as you stroke it?
Yeah, I wasn't making that noise. That was
you're just rubbing your hands over.
It's like a musical saw.
I'm getting more of a theremin vibe off of it. You just manipulate your hands around it and the
That's
feel.
right.
It's a beautiful thing. So this is Ben Maddox, aka Ben. Also known as the glorious host of Five Games for Doomsday, one of the best board gaming podcasts out there. As you can see here, covering all manner of beautiful people and topics. Rory and I, we've both been guests on it, which
you have both been guests on it,
is delightful. It's a very, very enjoyable experience, as you would expect, because talking with Ben is always a very enjoyable and wonderful, wonderful time. I do want to, if I may. Look at that! Look at that beautiful youngster.
I know.
Good Lord.
I know.
Is that your voice acting photo?
That's my full body acting photo.
Look at that! Look at that human man. So yeah.
I know. I'm hoping
games.
I'm on a very strict diet at the moment, so I'm hoping to get somewhere close to this physique by the summer. My beach bod.
Right, we can talk now. Tony's gone.
Yeah, he's gone now. Tony's gone to have supper, so he's all good. That shows how posh he is with his supper and everything like that.
He's going to have Ovaltine.
He's from an aristocratic family, you know.
Really?
Yeah, like his family owned. They were like landed gentry, like his grandparents, I think, or something, in Wales.
So you're saying he's got a bit of
no? No, aristocrats don't have any money.
They just have title.
Actually, yeah, Lord Boydell of South Wales, something like that. Anyway, let us talk about a quick 5 minutes on have we actually been playing anything? And Ben, as our guest, have you actually been playing anything? I know, obviously, you are also in lockdown as well over there in beautiful Berlin. But
and they just announced they're extending it to the middle of March.
What?
Join the gang.
I am so lucky. I'm having a non-booze couple of months, and it's really fortunate for you guys that I'm having because I got the news of the lockdown being extended by a month today, and you're really lucky I wasn't drinking because it could have been very ugly. Could have been very ugly indeed.
Well, do you sort of do you scratch the gaming itch in any way at all? Like, do you do any solo gaming? Have you ventured online? Have you tried anything?
When the first lockdown happened, it felt a bit like a movie, didn't it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite exciting. And also when the lockdown started, here it was the sort of beginning of spring. It was just after my birthday, which is the 10th of March, if anyone's interested. And it was just the so true.
So let me add it to the calendar.
I'm alone. And so it was starting to get warm and it was quite exciting and everyone was like, okay, we're going to do stuff. And so I started doing yoga and all of that sort of stuff like everybody did. And I bought Nemo's War. I've been thinking about it for ages and then I went, balls to it. I'll buy it. Uh-huh. And I'm not a solo gamer by inclination. You know, there seems a great trend. It might just be people are being honest. I mean, that's distinctly possible, but there seems a great trend at the moment to claim introvertism. Like I have some really outgoing friends who claim to be introverts for some reason, but I'm not. I'm an extrovert. I love being in rooms full of people, and so I didn't get into gaming to sit on my own and fiddle around with pieces. You know what I mean? There's lots of things I could do on my own that are far more pleasurable. Watching videos, by the way, that wasn't a masturbation joke. And
you can still watch videos while you do that.
That's true. What was I saying? Yeah, I bought Nemo's War. And I tried it and it was brilliant. I mean, it's really great. I don't know. Are you two solo gamer? I know Rory is.
Yeah. Rory is. I can occasionally be convinced into doing it, but yeah, it takes a lot of coercion.
Have you played Nemo's War?
Oh, and it's one that comes up quite a lot in terms of
honestly, it is what you want. Especially, we were talking off air. Mm-hmm. And you were saying, you're playing things that you played when you were a kid, that sort of style of game. And Nemo's War is great because it's a lot of rolling dice and skill checks, but it's not just random. You can mitigate your dice and all of that sort of great stuff. Oh. And so I have played a few solo games. I tried BGA and Tabletopia, and BGA is all right. Uh-huh. Tabletopia and those Tabletop Simulator are absolute disasters. I can't be bothered with the crap UI and picking up the whole deck of cards when you just want to pick up one, all of that. So I can't be bothered with it. And frankly, the whole purpose, the reason I got into gaming was to meet people. I got into gaming when I first moved to Berlin, which is going to be 10 years this year. Yeah. And, you move to a big city, and especially I moved sort of in my mid-30s. And so, I didn't have, and especially the job I was doing at the time, I didn't have a ready pool of people just to meet. So I thought I'll get into something, and I played Pandemic, and I thought, oh, this stuff's amazing. So, I thought I can do this. And little did I know that it would become my middle-age obsession. And so it was always about people. It was always about being in rooms with people. And so the whole playing over the internet, I don't bloody like computers, right? I use them because they are a necessity in modern life, but I'm not a fan of them. I'm not a digital native. Now, I'm sure your kids, Rory, are absolute, whizzes on computers, and they do things without thinking because, you've grown up with it. Me, I'm a complete technical moron. So, I don't like computers and they frustrate me. You know what I mean? So I like BJ and stuff. Where was I going? Yeah, but what have I been playing recently? God, I can ramble, can't I? What have I been playing recently? Coin games. Heavy. Well, I'm sure there are war gamers going, these games aren't heavy. But heavy war games and the coin games really appealed to me because I just am not into cosplaying at being a general. I'm not into the notion of using blocks that are actually people and using them as resources, right? It's not my bag. Whereas the coin games, they tell a wonderful story about factions within a nation.
So,
and
it's about into it too much. Can you explain? Because I recognize the term, but I don't actually know what a coin game is.
Okay, so you can listen to a former guest of mine that was on recently, Volko Runker, who is the originator of the coin series. So coin stands for counterinsurgency. And the basic idea of these games is you have a counterinsurgency power, which are the dominant power in the region, and then you have insurgency powers that are trying to take over. So the one that most people have played is Cuba Libre, where you have Americans and the Catholic League and Castro and all of that sort of stuff. The first one, so a friend of mine bought me for Christmas, which was Gandhi. And we were there at Christmas, and there was a couple of people who weren't gamers at our Christmas do, and I unwrapped the parcel, and I went, oh, brilliant, Gandhi. And this girl looked at me and went, Gandhi the board game? Are you off your head? And if you actually think about it, as a non-gamer, the idea of Gandhi the board game is the most bizarre thing in the world. And so basically, you have the Raj, which is the British power, and then you have Gandhi's organization, the Muslim League, and then the fourth faction. You'll forgive me that I forget it. And so basically, it's fighting for power, and you have particular. Each faction has a particular victory condition, and you have to go for that, and that dictates. And the reason Gandhi is super interesting is two of the factions are non-violent, so they can't attack, and they have to implement different things. And then I played All Bridges Burning, which is another coin game, which is the Finnish Civil War, which I knew absolutely nothing about. And that's super interesting as well, because I got an insight into an area of history that I knew nothing about. And these games are work. Because if you're not familiar with the vocabulary of war games, right, it's hard work. But once you get into it, it's really satisfying, and I would highly recommend them.
I played relatively recently Pax Pamir.
Excellent.
Would that be classified as a coin game sort of thing?
Yeah. No, because it's a system. The coin game has a particular sort of mechanical system that makes it a coin game. It's sort of card-initiated actions and things. Okay. But it's a sort of similar idea, sort of thematically, it's a coin game, right? Okay. Root is a coin game, too.
Oh, okay. I've been playing the crap out of Root, then, yeah.
It's that sort of idea that you have the cats, and then you have everyone else trying to sort of overthrow the cats and things.
Okay, nice.
So I'd recommend them. It's hard work, but I'd recommend them.
Cool.
Well, I'm always willing to give something a try and learn from that different kind of system as well.
Yeah, sure.
Anything exciting on your table, Rory? Anything interesting?
There's a lot sitting on my table, but the last couple of games have been Marvel Champions solo, just trying to work through some of the different decks, because there was like a flurry of them the last couple of weeks, so still unopened them a bit.
Haven't opened them yet, too scared.
So is that the Arkham Horror LCG with the Marvel theme on it?
No, it's very different.
Yeah,
and it's very good.
It's less story, more.
Punching.
But I've seen it described where it's more about the repeat play.
Okay.
And you would do with like Arkham Horror, you're kind of play and move on to the next. You need the scenarios, whereas essentially within Marvel Champions, each scenario can be played infinitely.
Okay.
Time again. But you still have to kind of customize your deck to really take out like particular nemesis or villains that you're playing against. And yes, I did put that there on purpose, Yoss, just for you to see. So,
any news about Combo Clash? Yes.
Yeah. So this is our new title for 2021. Like, given the pandemic situation, we're still plugging our games on 2020 and getting them into people's hands. But this had been slated, and I love it. It's so cool. It's like I'm kind of saying this to you, Ben, but also to the audience. It's kind of like a spiritual successor to Flip Over Frog, which was our tile line game. But with this one, it's like the objective of the game is to score 75 points. You do that by scoring combos, which is like the numbers on the top of the tiles here. And you score a combo by flipping three or more adjacent tiles of the same animal over to score their points. But each animal has a unique effect that it triggers when it's played onto the board. So you're playing cards down, and it's like playing the best round of Magic every single round, because you're like, I'm going to play this, that's going to allow me to draw a tile, I'm going to play that one, it's going to flip those two face down, and I'm going to score points, and then I'm going to play this one, and I'm going to discard my hand, draw more, do this to reveal a tile, play this one to move that tile, and then I'm going to score this amazing combo at the end, and then you redraw your hands and do the same thing next round. So it's like just watching people getting giddy at like how they're kind of essentially comboing the tiles off each other, and there's only 8 different effects in the game. Yeah, we just fell in love with it when we saw it, and can immediately like see potential for expansions with it as well. But just really simple to teach, and it has that element when it comes back to your turn, and you're like, you.
Bellend is the word we've chosen for this evening, Roy.
I've been planning something, and you messed it up for me. And there's a memory element, because tiles get flipped face down is one of the things that happen. So you have to watch the board the whole time that you're playing. If you look away, you'll be like, oh man, like, what was that there last round? Because you want to try and flip certain tiles back up to add them to your combo.
And who's the designer?
It is Andrej Sova. He's a Slovakian designer, game designer. And this was published. Slovakia. It was published in a tiny little kind of box in the Czech Republic and Slovakia last year, and it was
under a different name though, Combo Africa.
Combo Africa. And we, our distributor friend in Slovakia showed us the game and said, "Thought you might be interested in this," and we were like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" Yeah, and had to license it. So we've kind of beefed it up a little bit, improved the kind of component qualities as well.
And how similar is the game, the Hub Games version mechanically, to the one that you tried?
Exactly the same.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, the only, we just changed how you track the scoring, because they had dials, but we noticed it was hard for people to remember. Be aware where everyone was, so that you knew who you had to kind of beat.
Yeah.
So we made it more visible on the actual play mat. Yeah, but mechanically, no, we didn't touch the thing.
Yeah, it's really good. Really, really good. So we have a bunch of review copies in that we will be sending out to people over the coming days. And then it's due for release, hopefully in April?
Yes, April 16th. And it's almost like you'd play it like solitaire. Like, there's this joy of just scoring. You just sit there. So I was testing stuff, just playing them out, scoring combos, making points.
Yeah, I designed a solitaire mode for it, which will be on our variants pages on the website as well. And it's fun just trying to get the biggest score that you can. It's good. I like it a lot. Nice. I'm a fan.
So yeah, sorry, that was a diversion. That came in today. So it was our production samples have come in. I'm very excited.
Cool. I have not been playing a lot, but one thing that I did get to try on Saturday was a preview of a new game that Richard Garfield has been working on.
He hates Mondays.
He hates Mondays, apparently. What's up with Michael's audio all of a sudden? I don't know. Hopefully it's still okay.
That's okay.
Okay, cool. But yeah, so he's been, he was on the design
hello,
team.
Robin, by the way.
Oh, yeah, hello, Robin, by the way. And we will explain
eminent game designer Robin Lees, by the way.
Or Rumblies, as he is often referred to in the chat.
He's just evoking the old days of renting televisions.
Apparently I'm very shouty and tinny.
That's a Rumbelows joke, by the way.
Yeah. Anyways, I've been I've been playing this new thing by him called Roguebook, which is, if you've played Slay the Spire, you definitely know how to play this game. You know, it's one of those really lovely sort of like deck building, combo building games. Rory, you will very much enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes those bones upon which Slay the Spire has, been incredibly successful, and then builds another element on top of it, which is you actually have a world to explore. And you will never have enough time or energy to explore the whole of each of these different worlds. And of course, because the game is randomly generated every single time you play it, once a game is gone, it's done, it's out, it's finished. So you may never know what was down in that bottom, that bottom left-hand corner of this world. So it's cool. It's very sort of like about transience sort of stuff. Like, it exists in the moment while you're playing it, and then there's actually an incredibly solid game behind it as well. But it's coming out in, I think, June. But there was a preview that went out for it this past week, and it's really, really good.
Nice.
I can see myself putting a lot of time into it. And aside from that, I've just been working on a few more game stuff, a few more designs. Bez from Stuff by Bez channel has been doing a game jam. Week-long game jam, so I've been working on that, making a game about pies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
Robin is right. There's something has gone weird with your audio. I've just been listening to you. You can I can hear that you're in the room. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, let me fire around with my mic.
Where are you, by the way? So, Rory, are you at home?
I'm at home.
And Michael, you're at home?
I'm also at home.
He's
2 streets away from Rory.
In that direction. No, actually, that direction.
Oh, I guess you're not in the
way.
Office at all at the moment, right?
God, no, not allowed.
I go in every now and again to sort out some stuff, but nope, generally working from home.
And how do you find it? Because I'm finding it increasingly more intolerable.
I'm quite lucky in that I have family members that I got on really well with,
right?
With my children and partner. So there's like always someone to kind of talk to, and if you want to watch a movie, you can watch it with one person. What I can't do is get any of them to play games. That's why I'm playing solo games so much. It's like, yeah, we could be playing games and nobody wants to. So but I get to watch movies and hang out with people and paint and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not too. I'm very conscious that we have people around us, and we can kind of, as different members get annoyed with each other, you can kind of pair off with someone else and spend some time with them. And Michael, you're at home with Steph.
Yeah, Steph and the cats. Also, testing. 1, 2. Is that any better?
Is it? I mean, I don't know. I must confess, I can't hear a dramatic difference from previously. But I'm deaf, so.
Anyway,
misspent youth.
It's fine.
But yeah, it's just me and Steph. So we are, if we need to get away, I come upstairs here and just push the button and start streaming, and it's fine. Because then I have other people to annoy, which is great.
Michael comes up and hugs the screen.
My internet friends. Oh, it's so good. And then annoy the cats.
I'm conscious time is getting on. So, and I really want to have this conversation with Ben. Usually, I'm the one kind of bringing the topic, like as to why I kind of try to target a guest is probably the best way of putting it, and inviting them on. But in this case, Ben, I think you kind of came with the topic. So do you want to give us your kind of pitch for what it is you want to talk about?
Yes, this is something I've talked about before on various podcasts that I've done. But it's this whole idea of the 7 ages, and I don't know 7 particularly, but in the 7 ages of the gamer. So it's how you develop and change as a gamer as you get into the hobby, and sort of what you're pushed towards liking. And it's very, I think with any kind of interest, right, it's very similar. So if you think about the music you listened to when you were 17 and the music you listen to now, I mean, actually for me it's pretty much exactly the same, but your music tastes tend to change, your art tastes change, your film tastes, your book tastes tend to change. And with games, I have noticed over the years that I've been properly gaming, how my tastes have varied, and they've meandered, and they've gone into one area and then jumped into another area and then jumped back again and then gone into something completely different. And this is reflected by I'm playing war games at the moment, and I incredibly fascinated by that. And that is something that I specifically have said in many forums that I just wouldn't ever do for various various reasons. And I just think it's interesting how you develop. So I guess my question to you is, when you first got into gaming, how different were the games you were playing then to the games you're playing now? And is that about the games that were available, or is it about taste? Because I got into games at the sort of beginning of the trademark golden age of analog games, right? So I had all of the 90s stuff, all of the noughties stuff, and then all of this great stuff that was coming out in the teens. And so I wasn't playing the crappy 80s roll and move rubbish, right?
Rory, do you mind if I go first?
Yeah.
So I think I'm not going to count the games that I played as a kid. Right. Or a lot of the games I played as a kid, because as it was the plastic generation. Yeah. There were a few of them that definitely sort of like went above and beyond the norms. So stuff like Escape from Atlantis, for example, which got redone as Survive by Stronghold Games. That's a thing that sort of like pops into early memories. And I've mentioned playing Hero Quest a lot as a kid on my own as well, like making up systems where I could actually play that myself. But I think my first sort of phase as a proper gamer, as it were, I think I would probably call it the voracious phase. It's the, okay, I've played this one thing, which for me was Ticket to Ride. I was living in a very small town outside of the glorious, bustling metropolis that is Milton Keynes. And it had a very, very small game shop run by a guy called Nigel. And I just wandered in one day going, okay, well, I have no idea what games are like now. And 20 minutes later, after a really nice conversation and a really sort of like quick rundown on all of the good stuff, I walked out with a copy of Ticket to Ride and an invite to the local games night held at the British Legion down the road on Thursday nights, which is still on, apart from when it's
it's not
a pandemic. Yeah, but yeah, and after that, it was like, oh, so this is what games can be like. And yeah, I think the word for it is voracious. I would literally play anything you would put down in front of me, and often bought. I was buying like 2 games a week at that point in that sort of like first year, which I look back now and it's like, what the hell? No wonder you were so poor. But but yeah, it was definitely like okay, what's this kind of game? What's it about? What's it like? What do you do? because it's that excitement of something new. It's the the thrill of the innovative, and it's great. And I've definitely changed since then. But we'll cover that as we progress. What about you, Rory? What's your call?
So I'm just making a note of something. I think like play has been a cornerstone of my life, like the whole time, even when people were busy being cool and impressive and whatever it was, my preference was to play. And I kind of joked, like, some of my early memories are, I have a brother who's 10 years older, and he used to play, like, he got into wargaming when he was in school. So I have memories of, like, looking over a table at about this height at Napoleonics, and having no real interest in that. But when I discovered you could buy molds and figures of skeletons and goblins, and discovered like the Dixon's and Citadel catalogs that I could never afford the stuff from, but I would like build armies by like adding everything up and go £66. Like, I can't afford that. But like from early memories are like using Prince August to actually cast figures out of lead. So I think my first kind of experience of me choosing games, it was probably like a lot of Games Workshop stuff, because I had grown up and because I was aware of the kind of fantasy stuff. I think I started buying the magazine. But again, like, I think my time is just one of not having much money. So even as a teen, I would convince my friends to buy like Space Crusade, so I could play it. I would recommend that this is a really good game to get, and then I come around and read the rules and teach them all how to like play the game. And that was actually, my gaming group were basically 4 girls. They were sisters, and I used to play with them. They'd get the game for Christmas, and I'd go around and play. But at the same time, I would have like Chaos Marauders, Chainsaw Warrior, Blood Bowl, Space Hulk, which did have a solo rule set that I could play on my own, and like Dark Future. So they were kind of like a lot of my early purchases. And then I was a starving artist at the time of the release of Magic the Gathering, and that whole thing kicked off. So they would be my cornflakes years, where that's literally what I lived on. That and like flapjacks was my diet, so I could spend money on all the different trading card games that were coming out, like Mech Warrior and Vampire and Werewolf, and I think I had some Star Trek. Like, for me, I just wanted to try everything. That's my thing, is I would never get into one thing too much. I just want to try everything. So then, the time you're talking about, I kind of fell off the wagon. Then we kind of traveled over to Vancouver, actually, and I started playing Legends of the Five Rings when I was in Vancouver, and would play with a tabletop wargaming group over there. When I came back, didn't have much money after I moved up to Belfast, and didn't really have a gaming group. But I think I had Carcassonne was like one of the first kind of games I had picked up around that time. And then Arkham Horror, again, looked up, found it had a solo element, and would play that. But I do remember not having much money. Like, we were starting the business of Roy Story Cubes for young children. Time and money were like few and far between. So for me, when I could start justifying game purchases as part of my kind of business and research, that's when I really got into like just buying up stuff and trading story cubes for games with people at conventions,
right? To
just get as many cool games. But I still don't own a copy of Catan. Only recently did I pick up a copy of Ticket to Ride. So there's a lot of those games that you're meant to have played. I just kind of, I think, bypassed to some degree. I do remember, and I was telling this story to someone else. Thunderstone was like, I think I remember buying that. That was like my first trip to Nuremberg for the toy fair there, and I went to Ultra Comics, where they have English games, and I was like going, gotta buy something while I'm here because I can justify it as part of my work. And Thunderstone, I'd heard about that, and it had a solo element to it as well. So I sat in a snowed-in airport in Munich at 2 a.m. teaching myself how to play Thunderstone. And I think it's more in the last year. I would have been quite, like, I think voracious in buying games to play and share them with other people as well. And I definitely have kind of preferences for games that I play, though I will play other ones. Had a big bout of like trading card games with Pokemon for a couple of years, and Cardfight Vanguard, because Yoss has asked about VTES.
What does VTES stand for?
Ken has asked about it.
Well, I think that's what he's talking about.
Is that not Vampire?
Oh, it is. Yes, I was thinking
entertainment system.
Yeah.
Is that like nighttime Mario?
Yeah. Or everybody is a vampire in it. Everybody's a Dracula.
So if it's Vampire, I actually can take
Vampire: The Eternal Struggle. There you go.
Ooh,
I can take it or leave it.
I've got this game, which I highly recommend, but it's a game that you need a few people to play. I'm just going to lean over. Excuse me.
Ooh, let's have a look. Drum roll. Oh, okay. Ooh. Hello.
Vampire Vendetta.
Yes.
It's the new one from Horrible Guild, designed by Charlie Cleveland, who's apparently a computer game designer, and Bruno Faiduti. And it's it's this very simple, nasty, attacky, sort of card area control-y, base control-y type game. And it's wonderfully wacky. It takes about 30 minutes. And you play as one of the factions from Vampire, so the Toreador and all that. I can't remember. And you're trying to gain followers and get victims and all of this, and it's wonderfully wacky. And it's one of those wonderful games where the cards have special powers, and they all seem completely OP. Which if you can balance that. Because there's nothing more disappointing than when you get a card game and it says cards give you special powers, and it's like, get a coin. You know what I mean? I want, destroy everyone within a 10-mile radius. Yeah. You want that sort of stuff. And this game really does it. It's great. I'm going to do a review of this soon. And but you need lots of people. It goes up to 6, and I would say 4 would be the minimum, because it's very interactory. And with 3, you just don't get the interaction, but it's wonderful. Yeah, and it really evokes that sort of World of Darkness thing.
So I'll wrap up this bit. So in like kind of recently, then I've gone back to playing tabletop skirmish games. So I've always liked games that have a physical and visual component to it. And actually, over the course of lockdown and doing these hangouts, I was introduced to Bad Squiddo, who make they do kind of mini figures, but they do a lot of female focused figures as well. And I realized there was Onabagisha, which was from kind of feudal Japan, which is kind of like a favorite era of mine.
Oh, I saw those on your Facebook. You painted them, right? They looked you took some amazing photos.
Yeah. And that kind of pulled me back into a game then called Test of Honor, which I started playing solo. So I kind of feel like I've kind of gone full circle, where if I'm playing on my own at the moment, that's kind of like a preferred format. And I realized for me, it's actually to do with space and visual. I'm not so much a head mathematical person. Like I realize I struggle when I'm trying to work out if, card effects and combos of cards in my hand. But if I can combine it with something spatial, it's a lot easier for me to kind of see the pattern of what needs to happen. So that's kind of changed my gameplay and my awareness of what I enjoy.
So I like to have one game indulgence per year, because I don't have a lot of money and I buy games, but one sort of stupid game, and I've decided on my stupid game for 2021, and this might be up your alley, Rory, the new Warhammer Quest Cursed City. Have you been reading about this?
So I have Blackstone Fortress, which I haven't finished playing yet. So I'm kind of like and seeing the way that has a life, and then it kind of like they just cut it off. Then if you haven't got the expansions, you can't play it. I'm kind of worried about getting into to Warhammer. Yeah, I'm trying not to look at it because I'll end up getting.
It does. It does look amazing. And yeah, I'm gonna splash out. It's either that or the new version of Eclipse this year for me. But it sorry, carry on.
No, I was just gonna say the games I have, I've already, like with Marvel Champions, money has gone into that. With Test of Honor, I can keep buying new scenery or figures. So at the moment, a game has to really grab me to make me want to spend money on it.
Sure, especially as you're never going to get it played because of
well,
the world.
I am going back and playing a lot of and that's kind of been the interesting thing, is like going back and playing games, and that ties in, I think, to what you're talking about, is do games still hold my interest? That you've bought and maybe are sitting on the shelf or you played once, does it still hold up? And I think for me, one of the things that's really changed is my tolerance for like the rules, the concept, the graphic art within the game. Like that's all really important to me. If I'm going to sit down and play a game, and that's where I'm noticing my tastes have shifted. Stuff I would have tolerated, I'm like, I don't have time for this, and that's changing the games I choose to play.
Yeah, I started off because, I'm an actor, although, barely at the moment, of course. But so I started off with the games that utilize that skill set. So I played the Resistance Avalon to death. That was like the second game I bought. So cool. And it was really like, wow, this is modern board games. This is amazing, And, stuff like that, and Coup and One Night Ultimate Werewolf. And I played those kind of social deduction games a lot, and then I fell very quickly into the midweight Euro realm, and I think that's very much where I sit. That's my comfort area with games. I think the midweight Euro. I bought Fiume today, and the new Freedom and Freezer game, and but what the lockdown has done, unfortunately, is that I have a very small core of 3 or 4 people that I play games with, and they're all very down the line midweight Euro players, which is great. It's great that I have people to play with, but the problem is that I've only for a year basically been playing midweight Euros, and I'm getting a little fatigued with it. I want to play something that's not turning corn into points, which is wonderful, which is where I sit as a gamer. But variety is the is the spice, and the spice, as we all know, is life.
Well, so I think in terms of that that gamer audience, and this is like my stereotype, and I will answer your question, Rob, in a minute. For me, that Euro system is like what I think of the gaming community trying to pull people towards. It's like, as soon as you level up, and you get over your kind of like dalliance with these other titles, you'll play these proper kind of Euro games, and they're not my thing.
Right.
Like I'll play them, but like I said, my brain doesn't compute that way. And I think we kind of made that comment about like a review of Mega City Oceania, where it was like reviewers go like, strategy is okay. If I can use my brain, like that's a good game. But if I have to have developed a skill in dexterity, then that's not a good game, because that's. But I'm not.
Because I'm a nerd. My hands don't work.
Yeah, it's because I'm not good at that. So therefore, that's not a skill you can
develop. It's a game for children.
But the perception is that's not like, I'm good with my head, I'm not good with my hands, and that's like, there isn't a skill involved in developing dexterity. Whereas I would go, well, actually, I spent a lot of time tuning like my dexterity with my hands. So therefore, I enjoy playing those games. But within the game space, the mental activity of gaming is given precedence, and it's almost like, if you were to ask people to map out the 7 ages of gamer, I think it would ultimately get them to a 4x game or something like that. That's the ultimate goal to get someone to.
But I mean, if you look at primarily the gaming crowd, and I mean, obviously this is only from my own experience, but I probably could count on one hand the amount of computer programmers I'd met in my life before I became a gamer, and now I know so many, and it is the cerebral aspects that attract gamers to the hobby, right? Mm-hmm. And there are so many people who operate in here brilliantly, efficiently in here, and they are drawn to the puzzle of games. And it's a constant frustration for someone like me who's not from a cerebral background of education, and also is a bit stupid, that I constantly get frustrated with people for whom winning the game is absolutely paramount, and they will sacrifice the experience to win. Right? I have a friend who's a really lovely guy, but my God, sometimes he's a pain. He will literally. We were playing a coin game the other day, and he took 45 minutes to do a turn. I mean, 45 minutes, to the point where I yelled at him. 45 minutes to do a turn, because it is winning. It is absolutely that. And if that's your bag, of course. But I don't come from that background. I don't come from a background of games being an opportunity to flex my intellectual muscles and prove how clever I am. Although all of that is fun and feeling clever is great. You were talking about, combo clash, and you were talking about it, and this idea that you can feel clever by going A, B, C, D, E, F, G is wonderful. But primarily, it's the experience. It's the magic circle. And I said to him, do you literally, you come into the room with hobnail boots on and you just smash. You walk around the magic circle smashing it just because you want to win a game. Just sort yourself out. And so that's why I think I can go across the spectrum of games and play everything, because it's fundamentally about that dome descending upon the table and you creating the experience within that dome. That's why it's very funny where you always see pictures of people sat around game tables, and at a game night they've taken a picture and they all look terminally bored. And you think, my God, they're miserable. But they aren't. What it is they're in a world. They're in a world that you can't penetrate because they've created this magic circle around them. And that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, they're engaged, and they're they have the 1,000-yard stare because they have been turning corn into points for an hour and a half and having, a delightful time doing it.
Right.
It is hard taking those photos, of trying to capture the feeling of your game.
Right. If it's a Euro game, my God, everyone looks so bored. They just sat there going.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we try to do photos for all of the Hub Games releases on the website, where we're all being like the front of an MB Games release from 1979,
right?
Because you have to. But yeah, I can't imagine doing that for Agricola. So here's some cows. Have that.
I'm gonna quickly answer Rob's question. Rob, no, I haven't. Or Robin, I haven't played Core Space.
There you go. That was easily done.
Yeah. So you were talking about in terms of the 7 ages, this idea of, do our tastes change? Do you think there's a path that people go down? Is it just the fact that our tastes change over time, or how do you think about those 7 ages?
I mean, I think there is a path we go down, right? I think the modern person coming into games now. I think before, I interview a ton of people. And I interview a ton of people of different ages, right? So if I'm interviewing someone who is a elder statesman, for want of a better term, of the gaming industry, so Jeff Engelstein, Richard Garfield, Rainer Knizia, these kind of people, inevitably they all say one of two things, and that's Redbox D&D or Avalon Hill War Games, right? So it's really interesting if you go back to the 70s and 80s. The way people were getting into games were with these hugely complex, labyrinthine ideas. And it's ironic that someone like Rainer Knizia, who came in through war games, designs these beautifully efficient, simple games that just get straight to the nub of the thing. But I think modern gamers, like people from sort of 2010 onwards, there is such a wonderful realm of games that are aimed at people just getting into the hobby. Pandemic is great, Ticket to Ride is great, Catan is great, Carcassonne is great. All of these, Coup. I mean, when I kickstarted Coup and I got it and I went to the game night and I played it and everyone was like, oh, this is amazing. Skull, all of these sorts of things, right? That are very simple rule sets, but very engaging. And I think what happens is you get people for whom that is fine. They don't become obsessed with the form. And they're cool. They don't really own many games. They're cool to go to the game night on Thursday and have it suggested. They don't listen to podcasts. They don't read blogs. They don't have a BGG account, right? And they're happy to play these simpler games. But I think once you become sort of obsessed with it and you start to buy loads of games, there is a desire to go towards the more complex. And I think what's really interesting is you go through that and then you start to bifurcate and hop around like a frog on lily pads. So I went through a phase where all I wanted to play was little card games. I just wanted to play No Thanks. I just wanted to play Skull King. I just wanted to play
Red 7.
Yeah, Voodoo Prince, all of this sort of stuff, right? Then I went through a phase where all I wanted to play was heavy Vital Lacerda Euros. Then I went through a phase where all I wanted to play was stuff like Stone Age and Ticket to Ride and all of this. And so I think what happens is with gamers, you land sort of fairly quickly on where your thing is. So for me, it's sort of midweight Euros. But part of the development, I think, is jumping off and hitting different lily pads and experiencing different things and having a 2 months where you're just obsessed with playing Skull King every time you meet, right?
So I think that brings in a couple of factors that don't really get discussed a lot, I think, within gaming. And 2, 3. So one would be age.
Right.
Like as in where you find yourself in life. And what I mean is how much time it gives you and your access to friends as well.
Right.
So I think that's one of the factors that has a big impact on the kind of games we play. And like you're talking about that, having a period of 2 months when you're playing like all of these like different games. I'm like, yeah, I might get in like 4 or 5 games like
right
over that period because there's other kind of demands on life. I think income is another thing. Like I've always been incredibly aware of kind of money, lack of, and other people and whether they have it or not in terms of being able to afford games as well. So I think again, depending on where you're in life and you don't have the demand, say, that different stages of life might put on you, whether you're kind of in college and low income, there's that glory period, I think, in your 20s and early 30s. You don't have a lot of kind of responsibilities. You have a bit more free cash. That's a time for really kind of splurging on things. And then you've got, like, as time goes on, you might have more responsibilities and may even be hiding your purchases at that point. But I've become to appreciate small, lower price games that can appeal to a wider audience. And I think that also has an influence in shaping like those ages of gaming.
Yeah, I mean,
you get on different things.
I've discussed this a lot because gaming, you can tell when an art form sort of hits maturity is when real world factors start to be discussed in connection with the hobby, right? And this is happening. There is a reckoning happening within board gaming at the moment. And every day there's something new going on and there are factions arguing over the internet. I think part of it is we're all going crazy with the lockdown and Twitter is vile and quite frankly, I don't engage with it. But I think what's really interesting is there is a lot of talk about sort of representation in gaming. There's a lot of talk about sort of who is welcome, who isn't, And what's really interesting is someone who comes from someone who was always the poorest kid in the room, right? Who lived in the council flat, whose mother had to work 12 hours a day to put food on the table, blah, 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 Not quite Angela's ashes, but I was pretty poor growing up. And what's never spoken about, which is really interesting, and I think it's the American context, because I think Americans are particularly obsessed with different aspects, is the financial aspect, right? You see reviewers on the internet and they're all extolling the latest Awaken Realms Kickstarter. And there's very little attention ever given over to the fact that, well, there are people who would love to do this, but I mean, 120 quid is bloody unthinkable, right? And it's really interesting. I think, I think that board gaming is undoubtedly a very middle-class pursuit, and especially amongst gamers with the discussion, because the discussion is all about consumption. It is almost the quintessential commercial hobby, right? Because it's all about buying new games. I mean, you listen to podcasts, and almost every podcast goes, "Oh my God, I just need a $20 game so I can spend $100 to get free shipping." And it's a really interesting dynamic in gaming that isn't discussed. And I think primarily it isn't discussed because most of the people who are discussing issues within games are middle class, and money isn't their initial consideration, and it's other stuff, right?
I mean, I am inclined to agree with that a lot, without wishing to get too sort of like deeply personal about it. We are a one income partnership, me and Steph. It's a good income. Thank you, Rory. I appreciate it. But you mentioned earlier, Ben, that you sort of like you have your big splash of 2021, and it's because like my big splash of 2020 was Marvel Champions, and it's a continuous splash, or rather it was the initial splash, and now it's the drips, and the drips are because the drips are like, it's 12 quid here, it's 15 quid there, sort of like, and I'm cool with that every month or whatever. But that initial splash was like, what was it, 50 quid, something like that, 60 for the.
Well, we got a discount.
$60. We got a discount because we're super lucky, which is all cool. But as you were talking there as well, I've been thinking about what are all the games that I've got over the last year. And of all of the things that I've received over the last year, the only one that I've actually bought is Marvel Champions. Everything else has been trades.
Right.
Or like swaps or math trades, stuff like that. And I think I've moved into this next age where I had the huge collection of games. I ended up, when I moved away from the States, I gave away like 600 games to a guy who was just about to open a board games cafe in the town I was living in Manchester, New Hampshire. And it's just like, no, take them. I can't bring them all with me. I can't bring 4 pallets of games. 2 pallets of games is enough. But yeah, since then, I've not actually bought a huge amount of stuff since I've lived here in Northern Ireland. So I think I've moved into my almost like a refinement age.
Yeah, sure, you do, right?
Yeah, I would argue as well, Michael, there isn't a decent game store in our vicinity. Like, for you to have easy access to it. I know we know there's one that's about 20 miles away, but I think if you were wandering into a store on a regular basis just to see what's there, that might be slightly different.
I think so. But I mean, we do have, stuff like Chaos Cards who offer, free shipping at a reasonably low levels. I could buy a game and they would ship it to us for free, that sort of thing. Yeah. So now, admittedly, if I was walking into a store and browsing, oh God, yeah, I could easily see that I'd be spending at least a bit more. But, I do not have a lot of income to spend on games.
Sure.
Because, I'm supporting my own fun, but I'm also supporting Steph's fun, buying huge amounts of acetone and stuff coming in the post this morning, for example.
The thing is also right, if you're in middle age and you've put your kids through college and you own your house and you've worked your arse off since you were 21 to get those things, also more power to you if that's where you want to put your money, right, is into buying buying $200 worth of games a month. I mean, more power to you. It's not that that's a bad thing in and of itself. It's just that there is this. It's very difficult I would imagine if your only connection to the world of games is through podcasts and YouTube, and you don't have a lot of cash, that it could be quite distancing in a lot of ways, right? Because this is the dialogue. I mean, the thing is, what's really amazing about here, and it's more and more difficult now because of the pandemic and all of that sort of stuff. But my game group, and you should go and watch the YouTube video. It's made 3 people cry so far. So, and there are tons of games there from the community have just donated them to the game group. Say, hey, I don't want this, have it. And, because people can play it every week. And then there are a few sort of hardcore nerds who buy everything. And then they put up a meetup saying, who wants to play this? And so it's wonderfully inclusive. So we have a lot of sort of students and stuff at our game night. People who can't buy tons of games, but they get to play all the new hotness because of the few scattered sort of, and they're all computer programmers. So they're all earning $100,000 a year. And if you're earning $100,000 a year in Berlin, you can basically buy the east of the city. And so they're able to, buy all the new games and stuff.
They just don't have room to store them.
Right. This is an issue. But it's interesting that no one sort of elucidates. No one talks about the money aspect. Everyone talks about other issues, which are relevant and important too. But rarely is the money aspect discussed, right?
Well, that's why I love Meeple Like Us, who does the accessibility teardowns. Because one of the things they factor in is economic accessibility, and as a publisher, that's one of the things I find quite tough, because that's kind of one of our criteria when we design games, is that we make them kind of financially accessible to people, and it influences our decisions about kind of components and things. And to not have that mentioned, like value for money in a game, or to reference the price of it. Like when people review it, they don't mention the price of the game. And I don't know if it's because they were a reviewer and they got a free copy of it.
Is it not? I always think it's much more of a game is not a necessary item. A game is a luxury good. So if I wander into my local, jewelry store and spend 15 grand on a Rolex or whatever, am I going to go, oh yeah, this is freaking great value for money? No, I would have spent like 20 quid on a Flick Flack watch and then spent the other 14,800 on something else.
Infinitely less douchey, by the way. I would respect someone with a Flick Flack watch a lot more than I would with someone with a Rolex.
Hell yeah. I mean, I've only owned one watch in my entire life, and it was a Lego one. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. And it cost me like 10 quid. But yeah, because it's like I'm saying, it's luxury items. So I don't think value for money is what pops into people's heads very often, unless we're talking about Kickstarters. And then it's a very different kind of value for money proposition, because it's how much stuff can I get for what I'm paying.
Right. So, but I think within, like, if you think of the conversation we were having yesterday, Michael, about so our whole thing is how do we reach our audience at the moment? And we were talking about the difference between talking to people within the board game communities that are like active online, and everybody else in the world who's playing games who doesn't care about any of that stuff.
Right.
And for them, economics is probably a factor, because that game is competing with the book or their Netflix subscription, and whether they order other things online as well. So like economics does play a part in it. And I think it's kind of sad that it's not actually covered within the board game space. I don't think you can kind of separate them. And if you do, you're of a niche group. And for us, or for me, I want to target the wider people who are like, I want this because it's great value for money and it gives me a great game experience. To me, I love Songbirds because it's a tiny little, it's a little game that delivers so much joy,
and it's brilliant as well.
Yeah, at a low price, or at an affordable price where I can afford to take a risk on that game. But yeah, I do hear you though about like Kickstarter that's like, give me as much as you possibly can. Like, whilst I give you as little money as possible. It's kind of.
I mean, Kickstarter's horrendous in many ways. I think it is a gateway to people achieving their dreams, and all of that is wonderful. But I think, to be super successful on Kickstarter, it is that. It really is. I want to engorge myself on as much stuff as possible, which I think is a little unseemly for my tastes.
Well, I think it's like at the moment, I get it when people are like, I've got my one big splurge, and that's the game I'm going for. But it's when it's got like 10 Kickstarter games, all with minis. It's like, if your plan is to paint them, because I think Kickstarter it's all about promises of something,
right?
Like, it's a promise of the future. And if I think and I've fallen foul of this, when I think in isolation, I go, I can picture playing this game with my friends over a couple of weeks, but then I have to take the other game and the other game and the other game.
Right.
I go, well, hang on a second, we're not going to play all of these games over that period of time. Something has to give. But I somehow managed, like, there was a period of time where I could kind of like isolate and just think about this game and justify buying it because I would get to play it with my friends. And I think I've become more accepting of going, actually, I have less time than I think. So therefore, whatever I do needs to count with.
I think that's one way you develop as a gamer, I've noticed. And I think, we were talking before we went on air about whether it's a qualitative thing. Are the games you're playing better? And I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's fine if you take that approach that I want to improve, or I want my knowledge to deepen, and I want the choices I make to be better. That's also fine. But I think what's really interesting is that the longer you're into the hobby, the more discerning you become. The more you say, do I really want this game? So I bought Fayum today, and that was the culmination of a month-long will I, won't I process of deciding whether to buy the game, whereas previously I'd have just bought it. Right? And now I'm thinking, it's not just, I want the game, and this might be fun, but it's when am I going to get to play it? How often am I going to get to play it? How difficult is it? Are my game group going to be annoyed by it? And so I'm going to get to play it once and never, ever again. And I think that is a real development about being a gamer. You do become more discerning, right?
And I think this is something, like, this is the bit I think about game design that really fascinates me, is the kind of user experience of it. And the whole idea of, like we've talked about, Michael, of giving people just enough just enough that it's affordable for them to buy it. They play it and they want to play again. I think there's too much stuff where it's that promise of everything. Like, we're going to give you everything. You're going to get it all at once. And I'm like, I don't need an expansion. Like, I haven't played the base game enough to justify adding an expansion. And if I add the expansion in straight away, it complicates the game, so I don't understand it.
Right, exactly.
And therefore, I don't want to play the game. And I think, like, Marvel Champions is one of those things that does it, I think, really, really well. It could afford to even slow down a little bit, but it's constantly drip feeding you something where you're like, yeah, I'm having enough fun with this to justify me spending this. I can live without it. I can skip it. But you know what? You've given me so much fun up to this point. I'll buy it. And even if when the game ends, I've got this system that I can play for a long, long time after that, because it won't become broken from the absence of it. And I'd personally love to see more games doing that, where it's, invite people in to experience the game with a low literal price of entry, both in terms of time, complexity, and get people playing the game so that I always think of it so that they will joyfully pay money for the other stuff that comes afterwards. Because I think, like you and I, Michael, most of the money we're spending on games is going into Marvel Champions because we know it's going to kind of pay for itself.
Yeah, it's literally the only thing I've spent money on in the last year. Like it, and I am entirely okay with that because I haven't opened the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver decks that I got earlier in the week because I am still thinking about how the hell do I get Ant-Man to work with Wasp and what sort of cool stuff can they do. And yeah, Ken mentioned it there. It's like it's the dollar per fun ratio.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's about where games sit in your society, I think.
Mhm.
So if you look at the sort of Anglo-Saxon America, England, they're still very much a niche nerd thing, right? Whereas I live in Germany, where it's a family-centered thing. So if you look at Ravensburger, if you look at Hans im Glück, these sort of things. So I spoke to Stefan Feld a couple of years ago, and I was talking when Carpe Diem came out, and I sort of said, are you planning expansions? And he said, I hate expansions. I don't design games with expansions in mind. And if you look at these sort of German publishers, they're not publishing for nerds with disposable income. They're publishing for normal. That sounds absolutely terrible. I don't mean it that way, but for families and things like this. So if you look at a Stefan Feld game, it's 35 quid. It's not 120 quid. If you look at a new Reiner Knizia game, it's 35 quid. If you look at a new Hans im Glück title, it's 35 quid, right? And this is because where they sit in the culture is a different place. So they're complementary to life rather than attracting obsessives that will spend the money, right?
And that's something like there's so many times where I've said to American, particularly designers, I said, like, you need to go to Germany and just see another way that games are created, consumed, and shared. Like to walk into like a Müller or Karstadt and see all those games on the shelf, see the price, see the range, seeing, like, I love going in and just watching someone, I still have memories of someone on a backpack, and it's like they're going on a train journey and they were going through all the card games, going like, literally, what game am I going to play on the train with my friends?
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Britta, who I still have to talk about getting onto the show. Like, she would say their kind of experience is a game is a movie night. So they would all take turns. One person would buy the game, 35, 40 euro, and play it. And even if they played it once, they were like, that's fine, because that's the same as us going out to a movie and we had a good time together, and then we'll just pass the game on. So that kind of experience it's very different, but value for money is really important. Like, it's I know it's extra hard then when we're trying to bring a game to Germany where they're like, geez, that's expensive. And like,
I mean, it is a factor. It is a factor in the Spiel des Jahres as well. Value for money is part of the criteria on which they judge. I mean, Rossmann, right, which is Boots, is the German Boots, right? And for if there are any Americans here, that is a local drugstore where you can buy shower gel and stuff like that.
It's like CVS.
CVS, yeah.
I've never been to America, so I'll take your word for it. And in Rossmann, they got a game section. You can buy The Mind, you can buy the game, you can buy Black Stories, and all of this sort of stuff, right? Literally a game section where sort of in America and Britain, these are cool sort of hobby games. You can go to the local bloody chemist, buy a bottle of shampoo, buy a bottle of deodorant, and buy a copy of The Mind, right? And that is so different compared to Britain and America, right?
And also, like, I've said it to people, and I have to give, like, Anita, my partner, full credit for it, is like designing for IKEA. So we would talk about, like, the play space that a game takes, that it has to fit on an IKEA sized table, and that's where the stereotype, and I think of all these Kickstarters stored in basements in people's kind of houses, where I'm like, in Europe we don't have basements, like we don't have the room to store things.
I see these people on Facebook, and they're taking pictures of their new games room, and I'm just like, my God, the space in America, the space people have. I would kill for that,
I'm down with that.
But that's all of the factors that come into play to purchasing a game. And I've gotten kind of irate with some people at Gen Con, where they were pitching games and they were starting out, and because of the price, I was like, that game is just too expensive for what it is. And the side, like, no one outside of the US is going to play this game, or you're immediately like tailing off your audience, because we don't have that play space to put out that big game, because a large portion of the population are living in apartments, and that to me is like a big factor in terms of game design that is just not considered, I think.
I mean, Ken's right. Just get another apartment for gaming is right.
Perfect solution. Yeah. Perfect. The perfect answer.
So, but the thing is, Ken, you'd have to sell your games to afford to buy the apartment, and then it's like you get the key and you're like, oh wait, hang on a second.
Nah, you just move to like some sort of random Midwest small town where you can buy 5-bedroom houses for, $30,000 or something like that. Because I'm sure that exists.
And in America, you can get credit. You just walk in
it's fine.
and go, "Hi, I'd like £100,000, please." Like, there you go, sir.
Sorry, Robin's just had an adventure. Sorry,
Wow.
he was breaking into the neighbour's house. Back now, though. Turns out it was the new neighbours.
Is that the new neighbours?
All right, son. Yeah, I'm a new neighbour.
What
you gotta do about it?
Can
I'm
you give me
taking the telly for a walk. All right.
You got to do it in a Danish accent, though.
I'm taking the telly for a walk. All right. I don't know if that's Danish. I don't know if that's Danish.
I think that might count as a hate crime. I'm not sure. We'll see. We will see. All right, so we're sort of like railing it back a little bit to the ages. Where do we three think we are in our ages of gaming now? What phase do you think you're in? Like right now, 12 months into the pandemic.
Well, because we didn't map out what the 7 ages were, but I know I'm definitely at a point of being, even though I have all this stuff on the shelf, like my goal is for this to become a game library for other people to use. But for me, there's definitely a sense of I can do with fewer games. And I'm happy with that. Now, if I ever had to kind of tell you what those were, I would probably struggle. But I definitely acknowledge that I don't, like, in this past year, I haven't been chasing the new stuff. And to some extent, being away from cons has helped with not being caught up in the hype. But I've definitely become better at that.
I know, me too.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a transition phase at the moment. And like Rory, sort of, I feel like, and I think it might just be that the pandemic and being on your own so much really makes you nostalgic for times when you could be in rooms with other people, right? And so I feel like, and especially because I've had a year of playing midweight Euros and loving them, but still playing midweight Euros, I feel like I'm in a transition towards the more thematic and the more chance infected games. And I feel like I want to, when this is over and I can go back to my game group, I want to play more silly stuff and less chin rubby stuff, right? And I think that is, like Rory was saying, it is a direct reaction to the outside and the effect that the outside is having on the inside, right?
I think, sorry, I'm just looking at what Robin is saying. I think that like this could be a really interesting way, like it might be interesting to actually map out something. I don't think we're going to get to do it on this call, but
sorry, we can always do a sequel. It's always good.
But this definitely speaks to me, like the idea of flow and simplicity, and to me that's also tied to do with like setup as well.
Right, sure.
And we've got replayability.
Yeah.
This is why I've been playing Under Falling Skies recently.
Oh, okay.
So that's on my list to
and it's wonderful.
Nemo's War.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And part of the reason it's wonderful is because it takes 5 minutes to set up, right?
Yeah.
That is one of the reasons solo games didn't appeal, because, especially, if it's a multiplayer game with a solo variant or whatever, I'm like, I've got to take 20, 30 minutes to set this game up just to play it on my own. Whereas Under Falling Skies, you can set up in 5 minutes and it's there. And, it's very light with the narrative, but the narrative is quite strong and all of that sort of stuff. And it's wonderful. I highly recommend it. For non-solo-y people as well, it might be really good in these times.
Yeah. But I think that's like, in the conversation about solo play, I think setup time is a really important aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Because it's also tied with space. And because I do subscribe to groups, and some talk about, they'll set up a game the night before and then they'll come back and play it the other night. And others are saying they don't have that time element. Like for me, and I've done that whole like searching through rules, like an online and going like, how does this variant play for it to be solo? And for me, the ideal is you open the box and as quickly from that moment, you are playing that game in some form or other. and that's where I think that idea of staging the gameplay, like, I've been thinking about that, like, how do I build that into the game where you're kind of like iterating the gameplay to make it more kind of complex over time, so that you're getting into it as quickly as possible, and getting an experience, because the sooner you get into that and get into that flow state, I think is really important.
Sure.
If I go my current phase, I think I'm actually in a weird sort of split phase. One half of me is just very anticipatory, like, you know, just filled with the longing for the group, you know, the room full of people, like Ben said. You know, I got a stack of games that's probably as tall as me now, of things that when we can get together again, I can't wait to play. For example, I can't wait to play Obsession. I got Obsession in a trade, so it's basically, you know, like Downton Abbey, the Euro game sort of thing. I got Gil Hover's fantastic High Rise ages ago.
I'm playing that tomorrow.
It's such a great game. I absolutely love it, but I haven't played my own copy of it, because it landed pretty much just after the pandemic kicked in. So that's sort of like one side of me. But the other side, and I'm really sort of like happy that I've got this, and it's sort of like it's down to the fact that I started doing on stuff on Twitch in October of last year, and it's sort of like it's the like we've been playing like on Friday nights. We do like we'll do like roll and writes or whatever. So I will like run a roll and write on camera, and other people will also play along. You know, from the comfort of their own homes, sort of thing. So sort of like it's acting as the host, playing a game that's really relatively straightforward to set up, to get going quickly as well. That's important. And then when we bumped it out over the Christmas holidays and we did IdleCon as well, which Ben, I don't know if you saw, it was like a tiny little mini online game jam that we did for like 3 days. And it was lovely just having this small but perfectly formed community creating games, like this sort of like little buzz of making games, and everybody excited about playing everybody else's games. And that, I think, is that's the other current phase for me, sort of like hopefully a facilitator of, I'm getting joy out of it because I get to play something. But I also get to see other people create things. I get to play what they've created as well, and I really like that. You know, it makes me feel like I'm actually doing something in this world where everything is currently hit with a giant pause button. And yeah, I kind of like having this sort of weird little role in my weird little community.
Well, it's fundamentally cool. That's the word, isn't it? It's community. That's what games are about. They are a social. Well, it's interesting. In German, they're called Gesellschaftsspiele, which is social games. That is the name for board games, because they are about. And this is the killer about COVID, right? Because games are about getting round a table with people, being in a space when our lives are becoming more and more digitized, more and more distance. I mean, pre the the pandemic, what board games, they're willfully analog. I think this is why people go, oh, I've got to bloody download an app. I think part of that is I got into this because it takes me back to a time where we could just sit around a table with other people and be in their company. And this is the killer with gamers in times of COVID, because that's what you want, right?
But that's I think that pushes into a different thing in terms of like the types of gamers, because I hear this a lot. Games are meant to be social, and bring people together. And for me, there's a couple of things that conflict with that. Like, so one, you're talking about like looking forward to getting back together with people, and I don't know whether I'm just like living in the now, but I'm just kind of going, I used to play solo games before this because of my kind of life circumstances, and I feel like I was never organized enough to commit to something, to plan ahead. Like, I'm terrible at planning ahead and committing to things. Michael knows. And so that aspect of committing to something I find really, really hard. So that's why I tend to solo play, because I'm like, 10 o'clock at night, I've got some time, I'll sit down and I'll play something, and it doesn't kind of require anyone else to make that happen. So for me, that desire to play socially, I enjoy it, but I'm not going like living, tolerating this until I get to that point. I'm quite content with things haven't changed much from the solo play. But when it comes to the like games being social, to kind of echo back to what you were saying at the beginning, like there are people who play with others to play. Like I'm kind of very much, I want to sit around with people and an excuse to be together. But we were talking about that personality, that they need that other person to show how smart they are. Like, and that's, so not everyone is playing to be social. So, to some degree, I think some people are playing because they want to show mastery. They want to have a sense of mastery, but
they do want to show mastery within the context of other people in a room, right?
Well, they need them as evidence,
right?
And I will say, Pedro, who used to work with us, and we played so many games together, and I loved it because he was always willing to try different things. But he used to say, his goal in playing a game was not just win, but like just to show how well he could win.
Proper capital W win.
Yeah. But he had enough human in him to kind of enjoy playing a game if he lost.
Right.
Well, but that was like a key aspect for why he would play games. And I was like, I just don't get that. Like, I want to walk away with a story to tell after that game of like, there was this like, slim chance that something would happen, and like we pulled it off, or we didn't, or I didn't, and that's what made that game.
I mean, Rory, I think there are the people, like you say, that the ones who want the mastery. Mm-hmm. Ben, earlier you described, there are the people who come in with the hobnail boots and just want to just smash everything. I think that's different to mastery. I think that's more sort of like a desire to crush everybody. But I think the largest group are the people who play, and it's nice to win, but we just play because we want to. We want to be at the table with each other, which is, I think, a nice. It's an element that you have no matter what phase of your gaming life you're in. Absolutely. There's always going to be people there who have that.
Absolutely.
But I'm still gonna. I don't know. I'm gonna push on this one because I think it's one. It does a disservice to a certain degree to only because if you look at media, it largely presents games as, it's a social activity and people are coming together and it's great and rise of co-ops and blah blah blah. I think it'll be really helpful for people to be kind of told, well, actually, games give you a sense of control over the world. Like they serve a purpose, and that's okay. But it's also important to own that aspect.
I mean, things are rarely mutually exclusive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why the Magic Circle is formed around. So if someone had told me when I was 25 and I was staying out till 6 o'clock every morning, getting hammered with my friends, that I would get a thrill from maximizing my farming output, I would have called you a moron, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, part of the reason the Magic Circle descends and you become so into it is because there is this feeling of control within a world that you can't control by and large, and you are able to feel clever, and you are able, and what's so wonderful, especially about Eurogames, is that you are able to say, okay, here is my intermediate goal, and then you're able to reach it. And how often in life does that happen, right?
Yeah.
Where you have an intermediate goal and you say, boom, 5 minutes, I've done that. I've built the ziggurat. Bump, I'm on to the next thing. And so it is about sitting around a table with people, but it also is about the games in of themselves, the mechanics banging up against each other, right?
But I still think, like, I would think of that, in terms of, like, games give you feedback. Life doesn't.
Right, exactly.
You can't say, well, I made this choice and oh look, it was the right one. That just doesn't happen. But I think that's an important part of the conversation for it. Like, it's almost about people being seen and knowing that is okay, but it's also helpful to kind of be aware of that when you're coming to table and potentially communicating that to other people who are there to play and have like fun, so you don't get that tension between players. Because if someone is very kind of upfront and is like, yeah, I really enjoy playing games to win, like I want to play a game where I'm doing that, then you can go, okay, well look, let's play this game first, and then we'll take out this game that's really suited to you kicking everyone's ass, and we'll have a blast because we don't expect to win. But please don't be doing that when we're playing Pandemic, which is like the co-op game. And that's where I think it's giving people the awareness that there are many different reasons for playing games, and for them to be able to be aware of that and have that language in themselves. Because I kind of feel like at the moment, a lot of the conversation is about the social, and you have to be like the nice person playing the games and want to be playing social.
Sure.
Whereas that person's like, well, can I just say I just want to I want to show everyone how smart I am.
But it's the classic Reiner Knizia quote, isn't it, that I used in a previous video, YouTube, 5 Games for Doomsday. But it's that, what is that Reiner Knizia quote now? It's
beautifully set up. Well done.
The goal of a game is to win, but it's the goal that's important, not the winning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's getting to the goal. Yeah.
Because we've all played those games with people who just go, oh, I can't be arsed, and they just do random stuff, and they smash the magic circle. The minute that happens, everyone's got to be invested in the goal of the game. Like Demo Ken says, the journey, not the destination, right? You've got to want to participate in the goal of the game, which is winning. Mm-hmm. It's just, you can't. So I have an issue with AP. And I think part of an issue with a particular person I know who has particularly bad AP, their AP is there because they want to squeeze literally everything out of the game. And there comes a point where you have to say, I'm sorry, you may want to do that, but you're ruining the experience for the three other people around the table. So you have to maybe win by 20 points instead of 22, right? And let everyone else enjoy the game, right?
So, that and I'm going to do this quickly because Peter's on, Peter Karnak from Slovakia, who introduced us to Combo Africa. Oh. So, Peter, this just came in today, and I'll send you photos after the chat so you can see it.
Peter, have you ever been to Lipotovsky Mikuláš? Because I had a wonderful weekend camping in Lipotovsky Mikuláš once.
So,
there you go.
There was the thing I was telling you about earlier, the kind of the idea of value systems and how they develop in response to the life conditions we find ourselves in. There's a phrase belonging to one of these kind of values, which is essentially you can have it all, like even at the expense of others. And the idea is that it would be the stereotype of kind of capitalism. It's the kind of the Age of Enlightenment gone crazy. It's like you can master the world and show your mastery, and you can play to win even if it's the expense of others who might suffer. And that's different from, there's like another value system that develops, which we kind of need more of in the world at the moment, which is basically you can have it all, but not at the expense of others. Right. You're not willing to do it at the expense of others. And I think that kind of play style you're talking about is like, I want to take everything out of this game, and I'm not, and it doesn't really matter what happens to the rest of you as players. And if I win, it's kind of like your own fault because you didn't play smart enough,
right?
Either. And to me, that games attract a lot of that mindset as well, and it's one of the, for me, the less fun aspects of gaming. So we're all kind of looking at the chat, I think, at the moment. But yeah, that mindset of having it all at the expense of others and showing your mastery is one of those things that can kind of, games naturally appeal to people because they're the system that you can has the potential to be mastered. But it can also then rub up against the other values that we're seeing in games, which is like, well, we actually want to belong and connect with each other. It's not about the winning. which is a value system that emerges almost in response to that other one.
And I think a balance in everything, right? And I've had moments where I've been incredible, and it rarely happens, but occasionally you're playing a game and you think, I've got this. I have got this. And like 2/3 in, and then you get to the end of the game and you've been destroyed. And I've had moments where I've acted a bit petulant by that, just because I had my expectations built and then they were dashed. And you'd think, at this point in my life, I would be bloody used to that by now. But, I think so this friend of mine, he's a super nice guy, but you have to tailor the games you play with him because his goal is that. So you have to tailor the experience. So because he's not going to change, because this is not, and it's not, the thing is, at a certain point, it's not selfishness. It's just a way of behavior that he kind of can't stop when he's in these particular situations. So you just have to say, okay, we're going to play this game and not this game, because if we play this game, it's going to be an absolute nightmare.
I think you can play with that kind of player, right?
Sure.
And again, I think of Pedro, and where he produced T-shirts, which basically said, "Beat Pedro," because that's what the game would become like when you play with them. And I think I have the image of like a rugby match where someone's running with the ball, and it's like, it doesn't matter who wins, but we just need to take out that player.
Yeah.
And they get a huge kick out of it because they know everyone's gunning for them as well. So it's like, it's even more exciting. It's like, well, if I can win this, then I've beaten everybody. But literally the rest of the players are just going, I don't care who wins, which one of us wins. Just need to
stop them.
From winning. And that kind of levels the field, because it's essentially becomes like 3 or 4 against 1, which balances it out a little bit.
I'm going to do a bit of housekeeping in chat. We'll go through a few things, and also we should probably think about wrapping up because it's coming up on the top of the hour. Ken mentions with regards to before you start, Gil apparently has a pseudo game that you play before a game, where you say how much energy you have and what your goal is. So whether to win, to learn, to enjoy yourself. And I think that's actually quite a nice way of setting out your stall at the very beginning. It's like, okay, all right, if someone steps up and says, I am here to crush all of you, and then you know what to expect, but you can also, that person can then be convinced to hopefully maybe temper it down a bit if everybody else is, we're just here for a chill time, which is all good. Robin says that there are puzzle solvers, there are storytellers, and there are some that are both. That's very, very true indeed.
I changed my Rubik's Cube from yellow to red. I felt an electric thrill of the click of the plastic. Does that count? Does that count?
I like that. It's very zen. I feel pretty chill. That's nice.
Nice.
Peter says, yes, Slovakia is small. I could not
even
begin.
He's been to Lepetovsky Mikuláš,
I
think is what he's saying.
Yes.
Lepetovsky Mikuláš.
Yeah, it's a very nice place. It's the mountainous region. It's where you go skiing in Slovakia, but I went there in the summer. And I went to a hotel with an abandoned. It was sort of empty because it wasn't ski season, and it was great.
They knew you were coming. They're like, let's just clear the area.
Yeah,
Ben's on his way.
We should send Elizabeth there. She could go on her roller skates, hurling herself downhill. That would work instead of the skiing. I'm pretty sure that would be all good.
It's funny, actually. I will say there's a couple of people in the chat where I've mentally drawn up a list of, I'm going to take the camper van to visit you all when this lifts. Well, over the coming next 5 to 10 years, but I will get there.
When they get that tunnel built under the Atlantic and we can drive to New York, that'll work. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Rory's going to visit me. That'll be a drive. I mean,
where does Demo Ken live?
Ken lives in Ohio.
Yeah, but when they get that, isn't the plan to develop that like super fast transport across Russia and then linking that way with the States? That's going to be the land travel.
Yeah, but then you're going to have to go like up through the top of Alaska, drive all the way across Alaska, and then across Canada, and then you're in America. Probably.
No, so that's a bad thing. My God, that sounds wonderful.
Super fast train. Yeah, maybe I had a dream. I know there was talk about a transport system going that direction.
Yeah, we'll just visit all of Team America. So we'll go see Kota in Chicago. We'll see Ken down in Ohio. Everything will be all cool.
So just to clarify, I'll be starting with Europe first.
The locals.
Just don't take your ham sandwiches with you, Rory.
Mm-hmm. So this is a kind of a joke for you and Robin. The famous sauce, the brown sauce. Is it
HP?
Yeah, isn't it HP sauce?
Yeah. I'm a daddy's person.
Yeah,
but...
so it's quintessentially English, and it's made in the Netherlands. I just love that so much.
Of course it is. Is it quintessentially English? Do the Irish not have brown sauce?
No, God, no.
No, really?
We do have brown sauce, but we have Daddy's.
Daddy's is I grew up with Daddy's, so Daddy's is my preference.
Yeah. What's Daddy's? No.
It's Daddy's brown sauce.
Or Chef. Chef sauce.
Chef sauce, yeah.
Yeah, Chef is the good one.
But Daddy's is better than HP.
But I just love this idea of like people fighting for something that's like so quintessentially English.
Well, the blue passports were made in bloody France, weren't they? The whole thing's moronic. Oh, can I quickly get to why my beard is blue?
Yes, so I was going to ask, as a wrap up, why is the beard blue? Like, you look like you've seized an old lady's head and put it on upside down.
Now, because I did it a few weeks ago. But so I don't know if our American listeners are familiar, but 4 years ago, the British public voted in a referendum and made the most stupid decision they possibly could have made. And so for all of us living in Europe, our legal status was somewhat up in the air. And I had my Brexit appointment with the Ministry for Immigration in Berlin on the 5th of January. And I shouldn't have been worried because the German government had been wonderful, but I was particularly worried about what my legal status was going to be. And then they granted me permanent residency in Germany. Woo! So as a celebration, I thought I would dye my beard in the color of the European Union flag.
But I didn't. Yellow stars, dot them around.
I should have.
I thought it was more to do with like it was a way of marking you as being like English abroad or something.
I don't want to mark. I don't want to mark myself as that.
They did it to you.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Now you are a European. There you go. Ken does say that as a member of the US, they did make a much dumber situation 4 years ago.
I don't know. I mean, we could have a long discussion about this. I'm not sure Britain's going to recover any. I think Britain's going to take longer to recover than America is, to be honest. But that's for a different show.
True, and also yes, the lion, the proud heraldic symbol of a nation with no lions.
That's very true.
Such is life. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Ben, thank you. You loquacious bugger, you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
We would love to have you on again because
lovely.
It's just always nice just talking with you, which is all good. Shameless plugging, please fire away.
So I run the 5 Games for Doomsday podcast, which is a podcast. People have asked me sort of what it is, and I've worked it out recently, what it is, what I'm trying to do. So you don't read any interviews with Lawrence Stern. You don't read any interviews with... I guess what I'm trying to say is that you don't read any interviews with the pioneers of art forms, right? You don't read any interviews with Sophocles, and you don't read any interviews with these people. And board games, I feel, are in that nascent phase of becoming an art form that in a few years will become more respected, and because you see the process happening. And so what I'm trying to do, I think, is to chronicle these early years of board games becoming an art form. So we have a concrete record of these wonderful people like Reiner Knizia, like Richard Garfield, like Mike Fitzgerald, the elder statesmen who aren't going to be around forever. And when people are going back, they won't say, oh my God. And the point is, there's lots of interviews with all these people, but essentially all they're doing is shilling their latest product, which is great for the present moment, but for the future, my hope is that you can look back at my show and go, oh, that's who the person was. That's what they thought about things that weren't just selling the latest product. So anyway, 5 Games for Doomsday.com. You can go there, you can listen. Rory and Michael were wonderful on the show, so you can listen to that, and you can listen to a whole load of different people. My latest episode was, who was it? My God. Johnny Pack, who is one of the new sort of upcoming designers and developers in the industry. And it's a very interesting, we talk about jazz and we talk about, life as well as games. And also go to my YouTube, because I'm really finding it hard. Now, this might just be that I'm rubbish, but I'm really finding it hard to get subscribers. So go 5 Games for Doomsday on YouTube. I just recently today uploaded a video that is an essay about game groups, why they're important, why I miss them, and why I can't wait to get back.
I think it's the fact that you call it my YouTube might be part of the problem.
That's right.
It's like
skills.
Yeah.
I might call it free beer. That might work.
That'll work. That's all good. Rory.
Before I do want to give it a shout out for Ben. Like, I think at the time, I was doing a lot of interviews with people, and you had done the most research, like in terms of like asking the questions beforehand, which made me think, okay, this is going to be a really interesting conversation. And I think your interviews show that, like, the breadth that they cover with people. It's always fascinating to listen to. I don't listen to them enough, I confess, but the ones I do catch are always, it's like playing Netrunner. It's like, I need to do this more. Like, really thoughtful. And that is going to lead me on to talking about Jason Perez. So I'm not going to plug myself. Jason Perez has a video that went up a couple of days ago of him hanging out with Black creators within the board game industry. So designers, reviewers, and it's a really insightful, funny, thought-provoking conversation as well, which I'd highly recommend people go and check out.
And also you can check out Jason's YouTube in a couple of weeks, because I'm going on his YouTube channel as well.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good
I won't be as
stuff.
entertaining as that video, but
It's a very good video. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. For Rory and myself, of course, you can catch us in various places around the world, various guises. We are here every Wednesday on Twitch, on Facebook, and on YouTube at 7 o'clock UK time. That's 8 o'clock Central European time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon if you are on the East Coast of the States, and various other time zones, the way it'll work. Rory, you can find him on Twitter, should you so desire. He is at Rory O'Connor. I am at Idle Michael all over the shop, and collectively we are Hub Games is the place to go for. And any other news, Rory? Any other things? We're going to be back on Friday doing more stuff.
Here's Marina development. Yeah. So we're using a live stream span as an excuse to do game development live.
Right.
Killing two birds with the one stone.
It's pretty cool. And next Wednesday, we've already got a guest signed up. We are going to be joined by The Spiel. Well, one of The Spiel, anyway. So, Rory, what's the plan?
So Stephen is going to be joining us. Stephen Conway is going to be joining us from The Spiel, and we're going to be talking about play. So it's quite broad-reaching, but so we kind of have shared interests in terms of like creativity, creative expression, play, and so I think I'm not quite sure where the conversation is going to go, but I know it's going to be pretty darn interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Stephen is good people, and we can guarantee it's going to be a good conversation. Ben, once again, thank you very much indeed. It is lovely to catch up with you. Have you played my game that I gave you yet?
Well, interesting story about this. I did. Yes, I did.
If it involves spilling beer over it, I will kill you.
The game's
like
in
200
fine condition. That's okay. But we played it, and I played it with. It's very difficult with the pandemic and stuff, and we played it, and halfway through I ended up having a blazing row with my best friend, and I packed the game away halfway through, and I just went, right, I'm leaving, and I stormed out of the apartment, and it's all right, we're still friends and everything, but that was it wasn't the audience, basically. for the game. But it will get played when lockdown is over, and it will be reviewed, and I will be wearing corpse paint. And
that was that super rare game that you gave to Ben.
Yeah, Cave Evil, which, as we can tell now, is utterly cursed. So,
well, I was gonna return it to you at UK Games Expo last year, but
anytime. Yeah, because then I need to get you the mushroom eaters as well, so you can try that.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
All right. With that, lovely list. Thank you very much once again, Ben. Thank you very much, people who were joining us in the chat and watching us live. If you're watching us after on the catch up, that's also fantastic. But this is now where we wave. Goodbye to you all. Goodbye.